Thank you. It's great to be here. As you can see, I'm on the provider side of the outsource business rather than the buyer side. And we have come across, in my own background and the company's background, many different types of outsourcing, all sorts of events, things happening. Most of it does come down to, I want to do, when it's all said and done, I want to do and deliver a service at lower cost. And I think no more is it true then that it is now, even more so, when of course the government is issuing many of you people with a very difficult edict, effectively, which is a considerably, as a dramatic reduction in your expenditures. If you go down the route of, well, okay, I'll outsource, I'll get it cheaper, you will get it cheaper. You may not get it better necessarily if you just go down that simple route. But fundamentally, the sorts of changes that are being asked upon you, you're not going to achieve. Outsourcing, in its simplest form, can reduce cost, but you have a large challenge ahead of you. And I think we need to look at that challenge very hard, because we want to move from simply you telling us what you want. I've had many people say to me, I want you to deliver this outsourced service, and I'm in the training and development business. I want you to deliver it around the world for me. I want you to take all my staff on. I want you to use all my processes, and I want you to run the same amount of training. And I want you to do it for less money. Well, you can't. If you don't change the service, you can't. You can maybe improve the service, but you certainly can't reduce the cost. So you will need to look very hard at that moving forward. Now, look at the things you've got to take care of here as you go moving forward. Top of the list, I think, must be customer satisfaction. In our case, of course, it's the general public satisfaction. They know they're in for a piece of hurt in what's going on. They don't want their service to be reduced. If we simply just slash and burn the services because we're slashing and burning the people, then there's going to be a lot of unrest. So the question is, how can we continue to maintain the quality of the service whilst also reducing the cost? And it is reducing the cost of existing products and services. You provide both products and services. We're going to reduce the costs of those through, potentially through a transformational program. And that's what I want to get to, is that you have to undergo a transformational change in what you're trying to do. Simply trying to squeeze and save, you've done that many times in the past, can't work. Transformational change means you've got to go back to the basics, really look at what you are trying to accomplish as an organization, and look at, are there a better way to organize at the strategic level, so that when you get down to the tactics of coming to people like us and saying, well, we need to now retrain our people, you're actually training them to do the very different job that they will now have to do. Simply squeezing is not going to work. Staff retention, of course. There may well be staff losses as we go through cost reductions, but for the staff that do stay, we want them to be retained. We want them to stay. We want them to think they've got a valuable workplace, not just another squeeze. You can't simply make people work more hours because there's less of them. And that is all, again, about motivational, not just about motivating the people, but it's about creating the atmosphere where they can continue to work, but also changing the way in which they work, changing their processes, changing their policies, changing their procedures, changing what they produce, all has to go in line with that. And of course, reducing time to introduce new practices. There will be, as I said, if you want to do a transformational change, you will have new practices coming in. If you procrastinate and go too slowly, then these changes are never going to take place. We know, we talked earlier on about time to market, time to get a contract out there. The commercial world moves fairly quickly, but not always so. And I must say, from our side of the supplier side, the pace at which procurement takes place is rather slow, shall we say. It appears you make some decisions, you want to move forward, and then we get stuck in an endless cycle of change, because you're always trying to get the last minute out. Sometimes you just got to take the bull by the horns and say, I am going to do it, I'm going to move forward, work with a partner, choose them and make that happen. If we look in the training world, say, we are outsourcers in training, learning, people development, talent management, call it what you will. It's all about getting the employee to be able to do their job in the manner that you wish them to do them, as opposed to, I just simply want to do training because I want to do training. Now, this leads to, we find quite often, a division between what the leaders of the departments want and what the learning and development providers do. How many times have you all been on training courses where you say, that was a great training course, I don't know why I went on it, but it was a bit of fun, I don't really know if it's going to improve my job. There's often a disconnect between what the learning and development groups feel they need to produce and what the business leaders are actually asking for. And you often find then the businesses go off and they buy their own training away from the HR departments. It's because the HR departments don't always, and not in every case, get a true feel of what the businesses are demanding and work closely with the leadership team to actually strategize on where they should be going and how can they support that need. Certainly in the commercial world now, we work alongside the leaderships of many of the businesses in their thought process. We know where they are going over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then we can recommend back to them the changes that will impact on the personnel and the changes of the curriculums and things that they will need to introduce. Some of the leadership, however, focus on different aspects, such as here you can see we asked the top leaders, where do they plan to increase their spend on training and learning? This was before the budget came out. You can see the majority of them said, oh, we want high potential employee development. We have to develop our future leaders because that's going to be where our business is growing. That's a leadership point of view, which is fine in one aspect. But if you look at the spend on training, you will find that well over 75% of the spend on training is probably in this bottom half of the sector, which is job-specific roles, customer service, IT, finance, and non-specific options. That's where the bulk of the people are. The vast majority of the people are in that bottom end, and that's where the money is spent. But the leaders are saying, oh, often I want to improve my learning and development. That gets the HR teams all very excited, and they go off theorizing everywhere to develop great leadership programs. My cautionary note in this, I guess, is if you're looking to improve and start to save money and improve the processes, then look for where the money is spent. The money is spent at this bottom end, training the tens of thousands of people you have. And you have to make sure that what they get trained is what you want them to do, not just now, but in the future, when you have changed your processes and changed your department structures and everything else to actually get the employees working exactly how you want them to do. And that's why I say this business of training, learning, talent development, they all blend in those words, but what you're really trying to do is get a person to do their job better at the end of the day. There's many things we can do from a learning department as we go forward. Many of these things are things you can achieve yourselves without outsourcing. It's just that sometimes if you bring an outsourcing partner in, they have seen this many, many times over. Our company, we have well over 1,000 people dedicated to providing training solutions. If you go into some of the departments of the companies we work for, or public sectors, they have training departments of 4, 5, 6, 7 people. How can they stay ahead of the advances in technology that's moving forward? How can they be experts? They know their company they work for, but are they really the experts in delivering the training? And this comes back to core business, about what is to be your core business. So accelerating speed to competency. You're going to have to move pretty fast as you change your department structures moving forward.